First is the soaking, the shriya, or adocha lishena. Then the melicha itself, salting it for an hour. Then third is the adocha achrena, rinsing it off for the third time. After it has lain in its salt for a prescribed time, you have to shake the salt off. You got to rinse it under a faucet 3 times. 3 times to just rinse it. Doesn't have to soak it off. Now, you got to be very careful not to leave the meat lying in the salt any longer than the time, too late in the time, because the juice of the meat that comes out, blood, that juice is considered, also in salt, is considered hot. So it could cause a lot of damage to the meat. So this has to be washed over and supervised very carefully. Before soaking the chicken, you got to take the head off originally and not to soak it with the head, because blood cannot come through the head. That's why also we'll have later on, we would have had later on, when you shech the chicken, you got to shech the arteries in the throat. They're filled with blood, and the salt cannot take them out. They've got to be cut. The heart requires special treatment. It's going to be cut, sliced. That's if the person wants to eat it. However, it's best not to eat the heart of an animal. Best not to eat it, the Gemara says, and of course their reasons are understood. The liver, there's something somewhere. The liver is the most difficult problem of all. The liver is considered a solid chunk of blood. So if you would salt liver and draw blood out of it, you still have the rest of the liver, there's still blood. There's no way that salting liver can cure it of its blood. When you draw out the blood, enough to leave over just a mass without blood, although we say that the entire liver is blood, still the reason that blood too can be dried up. So boiling only, running on the fire, direct contact with the fire, then only does the blood come out. But in order, even then, the liver must be cut up into parts where it's open. You got to cut slices, indentations into the liver. The liver itself is entirely open throughout, but the blood can seep out and be drawn by the flames into the flames and completely extracted. There is no necessity to salt liver at all, though it is customary to put a light sprinkling of salt on the liver while it's on a fire. It's out of custom. The person that he ever did not do it is still kosher. It is customary to sprinkle the liver slightly, not like regular salting. Literally before broiling, the dam, the end, must be washed off. You cannot soak it. It requires rinsing. Rinsing liver carefully before it is put onto the fire. Then, while it's on the fire, put a light sprinkling of salt. Then after it is finished broiling, to rinse it off also 3 times. So there you have 2 problems. One, how much time must it be on the fire? How well broiled must it be? 2, if it is permissible to cook the liver, cook it means not necessarily cook it in water, even to fry it. After it is broiled, whether it can be put on the fire and fried. Put in a pan, that is. A pan or a pot, which is the same as cooking. Now, as far as the length of time for liver to be broiled, it is understood the best time is, as the Bach says, Shach apparently agrees, that the best time is to broil it until the liver is dry. You get the liver that's dry and hard, and it tastes like, you know what, and it's kosher. It's soft, liver tastes delicious and soft and rare, then it's, according to some posek, it's not right, it's not proper, it's not kosher to eat it. But there are days, Teshuvah brings days that you even eat meat be'umsa, raw meat. Legally you can eat raw meat, which was not salted. Why? Because the blood that's inside, that hasn't come out yet, is not considered dam, not considered unkosher blood. So if it's broiled to a lower degree, still it's not worse than raw meat. This is a shaila. It depends upon each one's outlook on it. We ate liver that was more juicy. Not, we don't mean with actual blood flowing from it, but soft and juicy. Once he made it to the Menachem, and he turned it down. So you see, there are different opinions in that, as well as there are different opinions about cooking liver after it's broiled. Is it that after it's boiled it becomes a 100% kosher item? Well, there are no more restrictions at all on it. Nothing can make it unkosher anymore. You can actually put it in a pot, cook it, or leave it soaked in water for 24 hours or anything, because it's finished. Item is a kosher food item. Or does it have a special law that since it cannot be salted because salt can never take the blood out, so too it cannot be cooked because there is still a problem of blood in it. Now, if the liver is not broiled well, it's not really well done, there's no question about it, that it is absolutely osur b'tachlis to cook it or fry it afterwards. Nobody can deny that, because there is definitely blood in it yet. But if it's well done, really well done, where it's a hard piece of leather, and then it is cooked, then it's possible, and there are most days say it's permissible. That's how you have chopped liver fried with onions and so forth, where it is in a pan, and it is permissible. Again, only if that liver is definitely dry, completely dry. There's no trace of it. And there are some people who would not take liver whole and fry it. Chopped liver, ready-made, for one thing, is permissible. Secondly, if somebody else did it, so somebody else grew the kalayim, you do it. Yourself to take a piece of liver and put it into a pot, people hesitate. Not everyone, of course, but there are some who hesitate, and so it's to each his own there. But the bigger point about liver, the problem about liver is that when you have liver broiling, there are some people who are so far out, so way out, to take livers, put it on they put it on a aluminum foil, on this aluminum foil, and broil it. This, of course, is the most ridiculous, most absurd, sublime, self-destructive item possible. Because if it is broiled, there has to be an escape route for the blood, same as the salting. It must be broiled on a grating, a wide enough grating where all the blood drips down. It's either drawn into the fire or drips down into a pan beneath it. But if it's lying in this tin foil, aluminum foil, lying in its own blood, being broiled, being cooked in it, it becomes as treif as more treif than chazer naturally. So very pitifully, when people do that, they broil chicken livers on paper, carve it up in it. But of course, this is a very tragic item that people who are very kosher, strictly kosher, extremely so, and yet when it comes to livers, they can make the whole house a place which is inedible. So this is one of the most dangerous items. This is not because of the fact that you can broil liver, like a person might broil liver and it's well. That's the least of the worries. There are other problems with liver, broiling that could, even if the liver comes out very good, but the oven comes out treif. So what has a person accomplished? The rest of the food afterwards. This cannot be learned orally. It has to be shown, demonstrated. So we'll have a cooking lesson someday. We'll show how to broil liver. Until then, it is best to avoid problems where you don't take chances to broil liver until you're fully informed how to do it. The other parts of any other part of the chicken or animal could be salted with special instructions how to do it. And of course, the rest of them are not our problems. The butchers have to learn these laws well. The only thing is to buy from a kosher butcher who is a London. You cannot buy meat from a butcher, in this case, not like a bakery or a caterer, where a seal of approval, a seal of kashrus is purely the fact that he's a Shem Shabbos. That is enough. In the case of a butcher, you require a London too. The butcher is supposed to know the laws. He's supposed to be very completely versed in Yiddish, because very easily can he chas v'shalom do something inadvertently, unintentionally, without knowing, mess up chas v'shalom to a very serious extent. So in buying meat, you have to buy one from a butcher, a tabach, a Talmud Chacham, and a Yerei Shemayim. Then you hope that you come out okay. Let's hope that we have this. We learn kind of Yira. We should be zecher and tzachus to see the Yerushalmi we had on it. We have been learning, which we hope to complete today. The dinner we had so far were the ones that seem very remote, far away, not pertaining to us anymore, it seems. Not that it's what was being told, applied by every single one of those halachas, but it's being taken care of for us. There's one halacha that's very much in effect today, that very much affects every one of us today too. Though, of course, we get meat that is salted already, and this pertains to meat that's not salted yet, still, butchers today are the ones that have to be very wary of this. It is that any meat which stayed, meat that was shechted, slaughtered, and 72 hours passed before the meat was salted, if it was not salted within 72 hours, then it could stay longer, but it has to be rinsed off. The blood accumulates on the top, and it must be washed off. The hadacha rishona, or a hadacha, must be made. Or the top hadacha, rinsing, a sprinkling, must be take off the top blood. And that meat cannot stay for 72 hours without rinsing in between. It can stay for weeks, months. But it's got to be rinsed off before 72 hours are up. Now, if meat was not washed, soaked, rinsed, and 72 hours elapsed, then that meat can no longer be cooked. It can only be broiled. The meat cannot be cooked anymore. It must be broiled only. So that it happens at times that meat is shipped from Argentina or shipped from other places. The butcher receives a shipment of meat from the slaughterhouse. He is supposed to check and see, butcher or delicatessen, any one of these places that receive big shipments, big slabs of meat, they've got to check the inscription in the meat itself, carved out by a knife or by ink, vegetable ink, where it says the date of the last hadacha, the date of the last rinsing. He's got to, he should refuse it. That's why I have mashgiach in these places. Mashgiach checks this. If the meat was not washed off in the last 72 hours, he usually refuses that piece of meat, shipped back, because you're not supposed to, that meat becomes useless as far as cooking is concerned. The question, of course, is, what's wrong with the meat? You can broil it. I said, broil it, listen. Why can't you, you're going to use meat for broiling, why can't you just neglect the washing off? Keep the meat for a week. You're going to broil it anyhow. It says that it's kosher for broiling. The answer is that we cannot take such risks because a person might forget or mix it with the other meat, which he's going to cook, and he's going to kill the whole thing. So, therefore, the keeping of meat before being salted has to be supervised to see that it is washed off every maximum 71 hours before salting, not to leave it stay for 72 hours. Stays can be only broiled. Therefore, of course, there's a two reasons shallot. What about liver? Liver cannot be salted anyhow, cannot be cooked anyhow. It can only be broiled, so why not allow it to stay for 3 days, which is a very good question in the discussion of Shulchan Aruch. So the next item is the final item, the eggs, the chicken. There are eggs that form. The chicken lays an egg, comes out with the shell. Does that mean that this is the way something appears inside the chicken? An egg appears over the second the flesh wasn't there, it's here now. Egg grows, it develops inside the chicken. So, first, it is mi'uda. It's attached to the chicken itself. Attached it starts with the kesher, that little string in the chicken, the white of the chicken, attached to the yellow. Then the white forms around it, and then finally the shell forms around it too. Now, there are eggs inside the chicken. As you open the chicken, you find these little eggs. And these eggs you have to be careful with, because when they are still attached to the chicken, you can't just take them out and put them aside and eat them regularly, because those eggs are part of the chicken, therefore they are fleshings. Since they are fleshings, considered part of the chicken, they can't even be eaten with fleshings either until you first salt them. It's part of the chicken's meat, so it has to be salted too. That's what's very careful with that, to salt the eggs that are found inside the chicken. If the egg is completely finished, you find a whole egg inside a chicken, then there's no problem with salting, but there is still the fact that it's found inside the chicken, so it cannot be eaten with milchiks. Cannot eat that with milchiks because it's only when it leaves the chicken. Of course, then we come to the question the Gemara brings, and it's an interesting point. Well, Jesus brings us in detail the question about you take a knife and you cut a piece of cow, a live cow, take up a piece of that cow, or a piece of chicken, a live chicken, take a piece of that off and then cook it. Is that permissible to eat? That's such a serious sin, so serious an item, that even the Goyim have that as part of their mitzvahs. One of the 7 mitzvahs of Goyim, first one is Even Achai. Anything taken off live, a living thing, is Even Achai, and we had the whole din of Shechita. What does Shechita do? Transfers a behemoth from the category of Even Achai, live, to a category of shchuta, which means it can be eaten because it became purified through shchita. But while it is alive, it is so osur, even a goy cannot eat from that item. Even a chai. So, the question is, whatever comes from a living thing, part of that living thing is osur. How can we drink milk? How can we eat eggs? Milk comes from a cow. Eggs come from a chicken. While these items are alive, they are devorim hayitzim and achayim. items that come from a living thing, how can that be permissible to use? In Yudaya, it's Pei Aleph, the Shal is brought. There is discussed at length various origins of this heter, why it's permissible. And it's this Chol Rosh, land that flows milk and honey, Chol Rosh, milk and honey. And Israel is praised for its milk and honey. It means that milk must be permissible. We have to use that posek to teach us that milk coming from a cow is permissible. There are other means too, and eggs from a chicken too, or honey coming from bees, not date honey but bees honey. It's mismatched, it comes out of the body of the bee. Not only part of a living thing, it's also part of a treifa thing. Yet, coming from a live item, still these items are kosher. That's a big chiddush in which are mutter, which are permissible. And why? Very simply because the Torah allowed it. There's no other reason necessary. The Torah itself allowed it. That's the greatest reason of all. The Torah, which says one thing is osur, says a different thing is mutter, and no further questions. It's the heter directly from Hashem, which means zecher to yemis, malay, these mitzvahs, all mitzvahs are totally in licha, and kashrus. This is what is metaher. The person who is zohir in kosher food automatically purifies his neshama, keeps his neshama clean and pure. Which means the taras haguf and taras and neshama, and what is Hashem the emes. What else should be asked outside for photography. We come to a topic, a new topic in Shulchan Aruch. We did a tefillah kelim. You know that there's such thing as tefillah for people. You have to dip a person. A woman is not kosher until she goes tefillah. A man, in order to retire himself, mikveh Yisrael Hashem, tada from all types of tumor and avedas, mikveh is a look and tada. But the din says, the Torah tells us that for kelim also, kelim dishes you use must go to the mikveh too. Any kelim that are bought and manufactured, bought from the guy, manufactured from the by a guy, brand new ones, or used ones, it makes no difference, of course. If they are metal or glass, then it is forbidden to use them until they are first dipped in the mikveh. The mikveh must be a kosher mikveh too. There are some places that use small mikvehs. That's the berachik is passable, really good. It's better to go to a mikveh, as the din says, the mikveh is kosher for tzilas noshim, that's the mikveh to use. Now, of course, the time that this really is a big uvda, big piece of work, is the person first gets married, opens up a home, he starts with all the sets of dishes, weishiks, bruchiks, peseks, everything comes in one shot. This entails a lot of trips to the mikveh. When you have already a home established, you buy a pot, a pan, silverware, something like that. Maybe it's a little bit work involved. But to start a new home for a newly married couple, this is where the halacha really applies heavy. You got to take your whole house, come out, all the pots and pans and all the dishes and all the silverware and everything down to the mikveh. A long job. This is usually done, from what I've seen, when the couple have vacation during the Shiva in the Mishnah, 7 days, so they spend the 7 days on vacation lugging cartons to the mikveh bag. Of course, the husband is smart, that's the wife do that, so that's easier for him. Well, that's the first battle they have, who does it? Or there's togetherness, start life together by dipping kelim. However, it's important to note that you cannot eat those kelim even cold. For example, a tray for item touches a dish, something hot, the dish becomes tray because it absorbs it. If a cold item of tray touches a dish, it doesn't become tray because it cannot absorb it if it's cold. But if it's not tabled, you cannot even eat cold stuff in that dish. That's even worse than treif, not tabled, in this respect. Therefore, a person will be very careful, very cautious, very careful. He wants to have a kosher home. Kosher, there's kosher, and there's toher. In this case, it's toher, besides kosher. Toher, that's the taher, the kelim. There's a whole lot of sections in the Torah based on this in Torah, the Gemara, the Shulchan. This is one of the major mitzvahs of a Jewish home. A Jewish home must differ from a Goyish home. This is where it starts. Goyish home, the kelim are not usable, even when new. They didn't absorb anything treif. Even when brand new, nothing treif was absorbed in it. Still has to go to the mikveh. And if it is a keli of metal or glass, there is a bracha. If it's one keli, you say Ashek Yerushalmi mitzvah so it's one or tvilas keli. It's more than one keli, so tvilas kelim. That's only if it's metal or glass. If it's other types of kelim, like wooden kelim or pottery, then it does not require tefillah unless the pottery we have today, which is porcelainized, glazed, of course that requires tefillah. Porcelain certainly requires tefillah. Really a smooth finish, the rough pottery, clay, does not require tefillah. Plastic does not require tefillah. But clay dishes that are porcelainized, or anything glazed, or any wooden keli, let's say a barrel with a metal rim around it, this requires tefillah without a bracha. Bracha is said only if it is a metal keli or a glass keli. Now, if a person gets a keli from a goy, notice now this halacha, he bought a keli from a goy, but he wants to use. This keli was used by the goy, which means that there's a double wrong with this keli. Two things missing. Number one, the keli is a keli of a goy, requires tefillah. Two, the keli was used by a goy, so it absorbed treif. You got to remove the treifa absorption from this keli, plus the tumah of the keli of a goy. How do you remove the absorption of the keli? You have to kasher it. Kasher, leaving it 24 hours and cooking up, boiling up water, dipping it in boiling water. So the question, which comes first? You have to make tefillah and hagala, dipping and kasher, which comes first? In other words, it's not that simple. You make a jump and say, well, naturally. It's not that natural. When you put the question in better perspective, you see that it's not that easy. Which of the two is more important in this respect? Do you want to remove anything of treifus from the keli and then dip it to make it tahor? Or, before you're going to cash it, to remove treif from there, first get rid of the tumah. Get the tumah removed, so you have a Torah keli, like a Jewish keli you have in your house. Or if you have a regular keli in your house, keli which you have in your house, and some shallow comes up with it, where milk or meat got mixed in it. So there's no shallow with the keli is Torah, but you just have to kasher it. So what are you supposed to do? Finish off one, make sure it's completely Torah, and then just kasher it, make it kosher, or first kasher it. Even though it's a goyish keli, it's not fit for use. You kasher a goyish keli, and then dip it. Which way do you do? It then says that the tefillah must be so pure that you first have to kosher the keli. You must first kosher the keli. The tefillah must be pure. We have a posek. It's brought in the Volas Kelim. The Gemara says in the Arizal, one learns from the posek, Ach es hazehov. When they went to take the spoils of loot from Midian, they went to Midian to battle and they captured the loot, the booty. Okay, you captured Caleb there. What are you supposed to do with it? You're supposed to table it. It's your Caleb. It says, Ach es hazehov, but the gold, the silver, metal, that you have to table. The Gemara says, Ach es hazehov, but only. What's meant by only? That means that if there's anything but the keli itself, it's not fit for tefillah. Naturally, if you have a new keli with a label on it, label still pasted on it, whether it's the price tag or anything else, a piece of paper attached to it, pasted on, you dip that keli, that's zero. Same means the chatzitza. a person goes to the mikveh with chatzitza, something separating his body from the water, there's nothing. So we do with a keli, if there's a chatzitza to the keli, a level paste, metal rust. And that rust is not part of a metal. You cannot dip that metal keli to your first sandpaper off the rust. But only the keli itself and nothing additional. Even that which is not on the keli, which is inside, what's treif? It's absorbed to the keli. Again. Only the keli itself requires tefillah, then it's a kosher tefillah. We should be zeichet to the true fulfillment of the mitzvah of mikveh. The end is b'tachas hashleimus, our kelim for ourselves. Our kelim, of course, means the evidence of the person, his heart and other evidence, to purify completely mikveh ksheda, mikveh tali Yisrael, be able to be Evdei Hashem, the endless, be aha, be the way to show him, and thereby to be zeichet to see the dias kel sergei pedah and Tefillas Kelim said that if he buys used kelim from a guy, which have a bliya, absorption of treif, he must first kosher the kelim, then to table it. If a Jew borrows a keli from a guy, this is a very vital halacha. We'll see where it comes in handy. So when the Jew borrows a dish from a guy where there's no problem of treif or bliya, say it's new. The guy has new kelim, and the Jew is short. He borrows. He's making a party. He borrows kelim from a guy. There is no requirement of tefillah. Now, why is that so important? Note. On Shabbos, a keli which is not tabled is considered an unfinished product. To table the keli means you're completing it, you're finishing it. The same thing as hammering away a keli and finishing it off. It's not usable before it's tabled. It is after it's tabled, so the tefillah is a tikkun monah. Tikkun monah, where you complete, you second, you perfect this keli. Therefore, tefillah on Shabbos is definitely awesome. What if you bought dishes during the week? You intended to table them on Friday, right? And then you forget. You're busy Friday. You forget. Comes Shabbos. You have very important guests. You want to put out your new chinaware, dishes, and you know yourself they were not tabled. Now, you would not want to eat in somebody's house whose dishes were not tabled. And you surely, Kolchike, would not want to feed a guest in your house. Hashem dishes are not table. You would eat it yourself. Why feed it to somebody else? You have important guests. What do you do now? So here's where the other day comes so much in handy. Now you have a neighbor, a guy, and you say to the neighbor, this guy, your neighbor will help you out. You say, look, will you do me a favor? I have a set of chinaware. I just paid $500 for it. Silverware. Do me a favor. Take it as a gift. Take it as a gift. Okay. Here is a gift. Now that it's yours, I give it to you as a gift. Now, can I borrow it back from you? I need to use it today. Give them as a gift, it becomes the guy's property. The shadow by getting a gift on Shabbos, but that shadow has nothing to do with the case of a mitzvah. So here's a case where you give. He gave this gift to a guy. It became the guy's property. He borrows it back to the guy now. Lost the whole chiyuv of tefillah. Right? Borrowing from the guy, he has no chiyuv of tefillah. See, now he has a kosher set of dishes which could be used right away because there's no chiyuv of tefillah. It's like it was table. Of course, this too brings up another shadow. You recall the shadow of selling chametz on Pesach. When you sell a chametz on Pesach, you sell it. Make sure you sell it to a guy properly. You cannot sell it to a guy properly. So we have a deal. You sell it to a rabbi, and he sells it to a guy. Now, what is done then? You transfer. You sell everything in your house. You have, for example, besides the chametz locked away in cartons, you also have chametz dishes. Those chametz dishes, remember that the issue of chametz is a macho.
tiniest fraction of a drop, a microscopic speck of chametz, could make treif 1,000 tons of matzah. That's how easy it's a mashal. So, the reason this mashal could be not necessarily the chametz in the plate, but it could be the bliya. The plate, the hot plate absorbs chametz, so that tiny drop of chametz, which is microscopic, is absorbed into the plate. So a person owns this drop of chametz, he's not allowed to, he has to sell it to a guy. So in selling this to a guy, he sells only the regular chametz, not the dishes. He owns chametz. In those dishes there is an absorption of chametz. So if he wouldn't know the halacha, he'd sell it to a guy himself, he'd say, here, I'm selling you on Pesach, here's my chametz, and here's my dishes, it's yours, contract signed, sealed, delivered, finished. After Pesach, what happens? The sale reverts back to the Jew. He doesn't know how to do it. What did he do to himself? Destroy himself. He saved himself a chametz. He forgot, doesn't realize it now, he bought back all these dishes for the guy, he bought them back. No required table now. He bought dishes for the guy, he got a table now. This whole house full of dishes becomes untable dishes. That's if you don't know how to make a sale. For salesman. Therefore, when you go to a rabbi who knows how to sell chametz, it's a good salesman. He sells good, he told the guy, I'm selling a lot of chametz. But I'm selling you only the bliya, the absorption of the dishes. So these dishes are not yours. You want your chametz, go dig out what's inside the dish. Get it out. But only the bliya itself is sold. The chametz is absorbed in the dish. The dish is not sold at all. How do you separate the two? That can be done. That's the sale. The sale is, mine is the dish, yours is the absorption. How you get yours out is your problem. But the dish remains of my property while the absorption is yours. How can you sell something which is intangible? Because we sell the guy the shelf on which the dishes are, or better still the floor underneath it, and that floor, together with whatever is on it, that's chametz becomes the guy's. In that way then, the Jew is saved, because the dishes after Pesach, what's sold back to him? The absorption in the dish. That comes his again. The dish was never sold to a guy. There's no reason, no necessity to table. So there are two ways. This is again a very important halacha to know that if ever necessary, Shabbos, for example, Shabbos you could give these dishes to a guy and then borrow them back. But after Shabbos, of course you have to table them. Only you cannot table them with a bracha. That's when you've lost out on the bracha. Not really lost out, because you can always. How do you get back that bracha? Yes.
What can you do?
And
there's a little with the other one.
You get a different dish, buy a new dish, make a bracha on that together with all these dishes. Covenant, you've lost nothing. Last and final thing this is that in Tfilas Kelim, as we said, you have to get water must touch the dish. Any chatzitza, same as a chatzitza in a person. Get a label sticking on it. If water doesn't get to it, it's not tabled. Therefore, you have a wine bottle. A bottle, very narrow, opening on top, this way, like a Coke bottle. Expensive type of bottle shaped like that, narrow neck. You table that bottle, it's not tabled. Because the water's got to reach inside too. You have to hold the bottle under the water, it takes a while to let the bottle fill up, then it's tabled inside and outside. Be very careful to see to it that the water should reach every part of the inside and outside.
Okay,
Right, well, when you fill it up, it's no problem.
You put it in the corner.
No, you fill it, you put it underneath the water, not the quart, on the outside. Once it's underneath the water, it's filling up process. We won't go into it. We said chatzitza, the shad about the Davina in the chatzitza, so it's not at all, it's images, which is a little bit of information. Not knowing it. So we said you have to see to it that the water reaches both the inside and the outside, and that is the tie of the kelim, which means that we tie our kelim, Ramein Hashem, which really become pure. We should tie our kelim. There are kelim linen and kelim tachtenim, kind of the heart and the rest of the organs of the body that serve Hashem. Though the heart of the king of the Abraham, still, the brain is still in a certain respect at a higher level. Certain respects at a still higher level. That's the Mayach is Machshava, the heart is Bina, the Mayach is Chachma. Certain respects is high, Shema Shama, Shema Mayach, Shema is Chachma. Shema and Shema. So, which means that the upper cable too. It's the cranium, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the brain matter that we have. all day Teshuva, the service of Hashem, to think only pure thoughts, and Hashem, to Shabbat, and even on Nicer, the Emes, the Iskashan, the Arizal, which was our saving of the Mashiach,
Today we start a new set of halachas, minimum of food that is made by a goy. Bread that is baked by a goy, or anything that is cooked by a goy. We're not speaking about the kashrus now. Nothing to do with kosher. We're speaking about the case of a goy takes articles and bakes it or cooks it. He takes Jewish kingdom of a Jew and the ingredients of a Jew, the dough of a Jew, the sugar and everything, when he bakes bread or cake, or if he cooks meat or anything like that which is kosher, but it is his act of cooking. The Gemara said that the Chachamim forbade, they disallowed eating bread baked by a goy. The wording is bread of a goy is not kosher. There are two ways of interpreting this. Goy could be pasnachten, which means the bread of a baker. Baker is one who bakes business, not personally. Or pas alabayis, bread of a private goy, who bakes for himself, for his own family. So the majority of opinions hold that the Chachamim did not make it easier against pasnachten, against the bread of a baker, who does it in business. Why? Because since the question here is not kashrus, the point here is not to become too friendly with the goy. Become friendly with the guy, you eat and drink with him, you're afraid about the ultimate result, that there might be chas v'shalom intermarriage. This the discussion about marriage and so on, all this must be avoided at all costs, chas v'shalom intermarriage assimilation. So in order to avoid this, the Chacham said, you cannot eat the baking of a guy, bread of a guy, which means that which he bakes for his own family, which means a private matter, private, personal, his home, but the bread of a guy that's baked for business, there's no chance there the intermarriage or intersocial affair with it. So the Gezerah was not made against the bread of Rabbi Nachman, the baker. Now, if a person is on the road, he's traveling, he can't find any kosher bread. You can't buy any kosher bread, Jewish bread. So in a case like that, there are some opinions that even those who say that the pasnachten, the bread of a baker, also is actually few opinions. There are opinions say that in this case he surely could use it. Even those who say that he could not eat the bread of, at least, well, he could not eat the bread of a private baker, there are some who maintain that if he's on the road, he cannot find any other kind of bread, he is permitted to take the bread of a baker, obviously because it's in traveling, it's in transit. So it's not established in a set place, you can socialize, you can remain there and socialize. Therefore they allow eating the bread of a private good, even possible advice, while in transit. Now, this halacha, of course, is a very strict one. A person should avoid any food that comes from a goy, to avoid becoming friendly. Especially, a person should not eat at any goyish affairs. So again, this is not a question of kashrus, it's a question of being social with goyim, chas v'shalom, which can only be done. The general klal is that those who seek to pacify goyim by socializing with them, they are the ones that the goyim feel a disdain for. The goyim get to hate them, they bring on the hatred of the goyim. The Jew acts as a Jew, pride, and he has no problem about the sinner of the goyim. Again, it pays to remind you about this. The Gemara, the story, the Gemara tells about one of the rabbis of Gemara who was ordered by a goy, the king, the governor, ordered this Torah to eat chazer. They told him, you either eat this chazer or you'll be killed on the spot. It's either chazer or it's death. Now, according to Halacha, what it is that there are only 3 mitzvahs that a person should die for rather than commit. Zona, adultery, illegal relations, and murder. This is not one of those 3. So, legally, not that he was allowed to eat the chazer, but he shouldn't have forced to eat it. Otherwise, suicide. Suicide is even worse than murder. Even says this rabbi refused, point blank refused. I would not eat it to kill me. The governor smiled and said, you're very fortunate. So now I can tell you, if you would have eaten that chazer, then I would have killed you. Because one of the 2. If you're a Jew, act like a Jew. If not, then be a goy completely. There's no in-betweens. This was the opinion, the statement of a goy, real full-fledged goy, who said this, and this is the feelings of the goyim. They don't want the Jews trying to pacify them to come in, to join them in their affairs and so on. They don't want that. They want to say the Jews live as Jews, they'll respect them if the Jew respects his own religion. And that's why with no conditions should a Jew ever attend any one of their affairs, speak with them, as we find 2. Gemara says, why was the Gezeidah of Haman brought upon the Jews? There are different opinions. Gezeidah Kodesh says 1 and 1 only. That is that they joined in the feast of the Goyim. Their celebration, this is what we're on about. The Jew must be Polish Mudo, completely separated from the Goyim, live differently from them, eat differently, have different different habits, and that way he will be this Kadashtem Isa Gedashim. Hashem says, if you keep yourself holy, I will bring Kedusha upon you. You should be zachat to this Kedusha, Tomid, always. The name of Hashem, the evidence of the Talmud, CPS, the din of Bishul Akum. Bishul Akum again means that anything which a guy cooks, no matter how kosher it is, or how kosher the ingredients, no matter the fact that it's cooked on the weekdays, it's still also forbidden for a Jew to eat the cooking of a guy. This is the Gezeidah of Rabbanan. There's no way to remove the Gezeidah, except that the Rabbanan made certain allowances, they made provisions that if there is a Jew who stands over this guy, or who helps in the cooking, no matter how little he helps, still the cooking is kosher. The guy is not Chassidut. Now, for example, it's a very sad fact that if a person is wealthy enough, he has a goy as goya as a maid, a chidama. In fact, the Yaakov is worth it. Now, this goya, sometimes it happens because of ignorance, purely ignorance of the law. People walk out of the house, they tell the goya, the couple walk out, they tell the goya, maid, cook the meal for us, when we come back, we'll eat. They leave in the afternoon, we'll eat supper tonight. Prepare the meal. They walk out, the maid turns on the fire, she sets up the stuff to cook, and it's all ready when they come home. Fine. They feel very good about this. They have a maid who did it for them. They don't realize they have a maid who just draped up their whole house. They food and everything else. Of course, Bishul Akum even makes the kelim treif. Bishul Akum even makes the kelim treif. So, what is necessary? It's necessary that a person at least helps to cook. For example, when a guy is about to start cooking, or during the time it's cooking, The Jew walks over and raises the fire a tiny drop. That's all. He added a little extra heat to it. It is said it's written about one of the great rabbis of the recent past. It's one of those. But it's interesting that it's also brought, Tosfos also brings it, a similar item, that he used to go into a store, or an inn, where they had food cooked by a guy. I think there's no shadow of unkosher there, because of this husband. He was afraid to get caught. He'd lose his business if he sold unkosher. The shadow was only about Bishul Akum. He'd walk inside this inn or this restaurant. He would light a cigarette, put out the match, and walk out. I just added heat to this place. A tiny fraction of additional temperature to cook the food faster. And this legally is enough. A drop. When there was no kavanah to assist in the cooking, that removes the stigma of Bishul Akum. Now, one thing more that we have to add, this is more important than all of the things we've said till now about the fire. Bishul Akum means that the cooking is asur. Why? The word Akum, literally taken, translated, means one who worships idols. Akum, I make a chavruta, is one who worships idols. One who is a kafir, I believe in it. This is the reason why Bishul is asur. And it says very clearly that a person who is mechalel Shabbos is the equivalent of being mechalel the entire Torah, the equivalent of being Akum, living in the Zohar. Where do we learn that from? You recall we had that before. The Gemara, we had a whole long discussion of that, the Gemara. How the Gemara arrived at that conclusion. Mechalel Shabbos is the same as a guy, the same as an Akum, the same as an idol worshiper. Therefore, it is that if a person is Mechalel Shabbos, he has a restaurant. The restaurant has kosher ingredients. He cooks in this restaurant. This Mechalel Shabbos, when he cooks on a Tuesday, that food is treif. Same as a Bishul Akum. Exactly the same. In fact, it is so treif that in this case, it's worse than a guy. Goy, if you have a Jew watching him, is kosher. Because the guy is afraid of being caught, lose his business and so on. A Mechalel Shabbos is a spiteful type of person. He's not afraid of getting caught because he's got a Jewish parade allowed, but a Jew, he doesn't know what to do when he's not being watched. He gets a evil satisfaction trifling up something. So he doesn't believe in it, he wants to hurt the Jews and do. So therefore, the Mechalel Shabbos, his cooking is the same as a goyim that's treif. The Mechalel Shabbos that touches wine becomes asur. And a Mechalel Shabbos cannot be trusted with anything, even with supervision. Therefore, nobody can ever tell you, although they'll tell you, they could tell you, they'll let them convince you. Speaking about the Rabbanan, the Gedolim, the Segedel, the Rabbanan, Chachamim, and so forth, claim that if you have a place that has a very high quality of hashgacha, the mashgiach is there constantly, he watches over it constantly, he sees it, everything goes in and goes out properly. If the owner is a Mechalel Shabbos, the mashgiach and 100 like him cannot help it. Because you put a mashgiach there, it's like pasting on a label cow on a chazan. You cannot transform a leper, cannot change his spots, you cannot change a Mechalel Shabbos into a Shulchan Shabbos. So that kind of a restaurant, that kind of a caterer cannot be trusted, you cannot eat the food of that caterer and shulchan. first day of the wedding, the big wedding, was Sunday. And I met the rabbi from Queens. Very interesting. I have a lot of more stories. I have a lot of aggravation during my time. A lot of different places with these so-called rabbis who insist the shkiach is enough. Every place I came to, there's always this very aggravating discussion. And when you get an opinion, finally, you get one who agrees with this 100%. In other words, one who's really honest in halacha. It's so refreshing. You have it on the table, this Rabbi Steinberg, I think his name is. It's a refreshing person because I mentioned him in a question about a certain place, Queens, Long Island, who has this ashkocha living, this Chassidut who was a mashkiach that would bid everything good. I said to him, between us on Chaynu, is that place kosher? I said, but between us, you also know what I'm asking. I asked him this question, would you eat that place? No. So she doesn't say anything, Would you eat, should I eat there? So usually you evade the question. Well, I wouldn't say it. I would say it's not kosher. I would say, He said, definitely not. What is Machal Shabbos? I don't know if you want mashkiach. Here you hit the jackpot just like that. Since you're glad to hear the good Jew talking. All Jews are good Jews, but here we're talking right. So this you have to keep in mind. And if you're going to keep this in mind, you're going to have a lot of opposition. You have to know this in advance, because wherever you go, they will laugh at this because they can't. Because I'm sure, I am certain, I have no doubt, that all those people that know such things, in their hearts, they know the truth. In their hearts, they feel they press down, they stifle the true feeling in their hearts, but they, with a bold-faced lie. They know the fact that it should not be, this food should not be eaten at such places. Not really kosher, but it's sort of a plague that's spread throughout. Everybody else is doing it, so why should we? That attitude, which of course is a poisonous attitude, you wreck the entire Torah that way, Chas v'sholom. So therefore, let's keep this point in mind. Chol Shabbos is the same din as a goy. If he touches wine, it's not kosher. Therefore, you have to have yanim avushal, which is immune to touching by a goy or Chol Shabbos. If he cooks anything, it's not kosher. If he has supervision, it does not help. Nothing helps except tshuva, and that helps for everything. That's a true for, all the true for every single kind of a machla. The piece of the gashmis, we should be zecher to true degree of tshuva, shlima. And there should be emes. See the yes, maybe